Today we're going to talk about the Copius Group and the recruitment industry.
So welcome to ProfileTree TV, and today we're joined by Cathy McCorry from the Copius Group. So thank you very much for coming in and chatting to us today.
No problem, Ciaran.
You wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself and the Copius Group as well?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm the commercial director for the Copius Group based here in Belfast. And, we are traditionally, I suppose, seen as a mainstream recruitment agency. And we have been in operation now about 10 years. I joined the company about 3 years ago. But I came into recruitment in a very long, roundabout way, I have to say. And I think up until probably recent years, that was the way most people got into recruitment. People didn't necessarily see it as a sort of a career, as such a professional career. But my background was I originally trained as an accountant, and found it a wee bit too boring for me, I have to say, and by sort of default then got into financial services and went from there to, I was actually interviewed for a job through a recruitment agency in town here, and the lady that owned the agency actually offered me a job. So it was sort of an opportunity to work with people every day, which I love to do. It was a bit of a step change from my sort of career up to that point, and I thought it was a good challenge. So I did that, and then progressed from there. I moved on to a larger company a couple of years after, who had fairly big ambitions to grow their business and wanted to sort of bring people on board that had sort of similar ambition, I guess. And I was with them for 17 years and became the managing director after sort of progressing through the years. And it was a 120 million turnover business. We employed 700 people worldwide, and I was very lucky because the two shareholders that owned that business were very supportive, particularly at the time, of women and developing women. And our actually recruitment traditionally is quite male dominated if you look at the UK landscape, but in Northern Ireland it's actually quite heavily female orientated. And as I say, they championed women in the workplace and put a good bit behind developing the female workforce in particular, and give them lots of opportunity. And I was just very lucky. They looked after me. I loved them. We had fantastic time growing the business. We were operating out of the Middle East, South America, Ireland, and as I said, it just grew from there. And then sadly one of the shareholders passed away, and it was sort of timing really for me. Was I'd always had in the back of my mind maybe doing something on my own, opening my own business and working for myself. And and I think that comes from my dad worked for himself and his father worked for himself. So I just saw that as an opportunity maybe to make a change. And as a result then I stepped away and set up my own agency here in Belfast. And even though the company that I'd worked for were operating on the generalist recruitment space, we were quite niche. We developed a niche area in terms of the oil and gas sector in particular. And with great fun doing that, of course, great working for yourself. Not so good when it comes to paying the bills every month and no salary, but that's the way it goes sometimes. And I guess we had some challenges because of the downturn in the oil and gas market. And because we were quite a new business at that stage, we were only operating about 18 months. We really were faced with either sort of completely reinventing ourselves or looking to where other opportunities were. And at that time, an opportunity within the Copius Group presented itself. Who they had been doing stuff in a little bit within power generation, sort of slightly aligned to oil and gas in a different way. And there was definitely sort of a bit of synergy between my experience and background and that of some of my team with what they were trying to achieve. And on top of that, it had been quite a successful business, but the owner at that time recognised that there was good opportunity for growth, but needed somebody to come in and help develop the strategy to make that happen. And as a result, I joined the company, and as I say, that was 3 years ago. So I haven't looked back since, I have to say. We've had a fantastic ride, and Copius basically now is more as developed a 5-year strategy and business plan, and we're sort of 3 years into that, and it's been going very, very well. So essentially, we are a recruitment provider. Manpower provider, I guess, but also now a subcontractor. So our key focus in terms of the industry sectors in which we provide staff are in oil and gas, renewables, sort of engineering, construction, that sort of thing. So typically we would supply personnel into projects and construction, maintenance, operational support and stuff like that, and it's typically engineering. That's broadly, probably 85 to 90% of our personnel would be in engineering. So we support projects all over the world. We do very little work here in Northern Ireland. Most of our customer base is based out of mainland Europe. And so we work out of we have an office in the United States, so we do some work there. We're in Belgium, Germany, Holland. A large proportion of our work comes out of Holland, and we do work in Sweden, Switzerland. So it's sort of takes us all over the place, which is great. I have to say, and we have a great team in Belfast that are really the central hub of delivering services to our customers. So we get a chance to work with really interesting companies. We've supported projects for the likes of Google, BP, ExxonMobil, and companies like that. Facebook would be another example. So we get a good chance to work with some major players across the world.
Incredible. And obviously your commercial background is perfect for the role then that you stepped into.
Well, sort of, yes. It's a bit of jack of all trades, I think, Ciaran, I have to say, because obviously it's a title which is very broad because the job itself is very broad. You're looking at everything from sort of business strategy to resourcing to staffing to training, marketing, obviously sales, client development will be one of the big focuses for me now, I have to say, and building those relationships, and that's very much a personal thing that we do. We have a big focus on building personal relationships with our customers. A high proportion of our business, both from a candidate perspective and from a client perspective, comes from referrals, and that's all because of the relationships that we build with the workers that we work with, our contractors, and obviously our clients. So lucky for me, that involves a good bit of travelling, I have to say. So I'm never housed, never housed, as my mother would say. So I get a chance to travel everywhere, and as I say, meet some really interesting people, and it's a very interesting we work in some very interesting sectors as well, and you bring back down to even just the current situation, even with Brexit and how that might affect our business and stuff like that, and that's a key topic a lot of our customers are talking about at the moment. So in some ways we see opportunity and disadvantage, of course, but we're just planning for all eventualities and keep working away in the meantime, as I'm sure most businesses are here.
Change the things you can change and don't worry
about
it.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
Good frame of mind. Amazing. So, and the Belfast team then? So you do all or a lot of the operations from here then?
90% of the operations is out of Belfast, yes. So we have a really good team. A lot of them have been with the company a long time. Some obviously came and joined when I joined, and we are expanding. We're hoping to double our team next year. The business has grown its revenues over the last couple of years, 40% consistently. We aim to double it next year, so we have an ambitious growth plan. And as we can see it, there's just even more opportunities. That the market's very buoyant in the sector that we are in, and our customers are continuing to grow, and that's only positive for us.
And obviously, so it's the engineering sector, so it's IT as well as part
No,
of it?
we actually don't really do anything in IT.
Oil and gas, renewables?
Yes, so it would be typically, it could be anything from electrical personnel to mechanical personnel, sort of across the board.
So you see a surgence in the technology there, renewable energy, the cars, all
yes,
the industry is, as you say.
Yeah, it's growing, yes, and it's actually the fast-paced track in which that particular industry is growing is outstripping most other across the globe, so it's a positive thing for us. And again, because whilst, and probably similar to a lot of businesses in Northern Ireland, whilst we're based here, most of our market is export market, whether it's goods or services or whatever your business is. So in a way that gives us some resilience to market trends in particular geographies, and that's obviously a positive thing. One of the good things, I guess, for us is that our product is people, and British and Irish workers in particular have a very strong positive reputation for being technically very competent, educationally very good, sort of general aptitude to work is very positive. So therefore our international customers like us providing that, you know, those sorts of workers, you know, and that's again a testament to sort of the calibre of people coming out of Northern Ireland.
It's incredible. So, so a lot of the people you placed in are from here, or from
Yes,
Ireland? Right.
I would say 95% of the people that we work with are British or Irish workers. Yeah.
Incredible. So you're
Yeah.
exporting talent all
Exactly,
around the world.
homegrown talent. Yes,
Building,
yes.
building the world. And,
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah,
I'm sure
exactly.
taking the experience back here as well.
Well, that's the other thing, you know, and obviously, you know, most of the people that we are working with, you know, their salary levels would be relatively high. They're coming back home. They're spending that in the localised marketplace. So that's all good, I guess, for not just for Copius, but for Northern Ireland.
No, totally. Because again, I, as I mentioned, I had 11 years on the road, but
Yes,
back home as well. But the experience and the education we got on the road and different
Of course,
cultures
yes,
and everything was amazing. So helping us grow our business as well. Online.
Yes.
It's changing
Oh, it is
everything.
really. Yes.
So in recruitment and in your own business, how are you adapting to the
Oh
online?
my goodness. And I guess probably for me, now I've been in recruitment 20 years. So
you've seen loads of changes.
I've seen loads of change. And particularly probably in the last 5 to 7 years, the development of sort of online, particularly social media. Now that said, it has changed and probably driven efficiency in a lot of ways. That would be the core thing, I guess. Then in addition to that, how you interact with both your candidate and your client has probably changed. Maybe more so with the candidate marketplace. And I would say this is true for most agencies, whatever market you're operating in. But the thing that hasn't changed, I guess, is the personal approach. And at the end of the day, you know, you can tick any box, you can fill any form online, you can, you know, go through any screening process, but ultimately, in 90% of businesses, it all comes down to people, you know, and for us, you know, that personal interaction with people is really important. Now that can be through Skype or on the phone or whatever, you know, but the development of online has sort of changed the way in which you interact slightly, but it hasn't replaced it, I guess. And as I say, it's driven efficiencies within our business for sure. And it, you know, it has brought challenges as well, because you're trying to keep ahead of the curve in terms of where, you know, the online trends are going and technologies and stuff like that, particularly because we're still a relatively small business, so we don't have maybe the budgets that some other larger companies would have to invest in technology, so we have to utilise what we've got to the best of our ability. But that's the beauty, I guess, about some of the online platforms, and you know, is that you can do a lot on a small budget, you know. So I guess maybe that's a long-winded way of trying to answer your question,
no,
but
and no, see, I'm thinking of, because obviously we've all seen, and every business, no matter what business you're in, if you're retail, like look at what's happening in the retail sector, and they did not adapt well to the challenges or the inputs from the online competition. But even in recruitment, there is online competitors coming in.
Oh, absolutely. Particularly like, you know, there's a lot of job boards and similar, you know.
But they don't have the personal touch.
That's exactly it. Do you know what I mean? And like, even, you know, some of the big, you look at maybe some of the big major tech firms that would typically have maybe a 5-interview process, but out of that 5-interview process, 3 out of 5 of those stages are still face to face. So, and that's the big technology firms, you know, that you would expect to be primarily recruiting through online methods, you know. So it's used a lot in a lot of instances for sourcing and initial screening and stuff like that, you know. But in terms of coming to the point of hire and job offer and onboarding, that's still very much in the people space, you know. And I guess that's where there's an element of our type of industry will never go away, you know.
No way.
But the other thing would be, from a candidate perspective, I guess, if you're a job seeker, you know, there's so many more opportunities open to you now because, you know, of online mechanisms, whether it's through YouTube or Google or any of these sorts of search engines. And, you know, if you look back to maybe even 20 years ago, when I would have been looking for a job, you were in the, you know, you were ringing people through the yellow pages, you were in the Belfast Telegraph and the main newspapers, you know, and now people can get job opportunities all over the world, you know, just from sitting in the comfort of their own home. And I guess mobile technology plays a big part in that.
Yeah.
And we would even see that ourselves, you know. So I would say, you know, the accessibility of people being able to use mobile technology on the go has shifted again, in terms of even just for simplifying job applications, making jobs more accessible to them, bringing them a little bit closer to the employer. And now the candidate market or the job seeker market, they're looking for different things than what they would have been looking for sort of 10 years ago and 20 years ago, you know. And, you know, the likes of online video, for example, gives companies an opportunity to showcase themselves to those job seekers in a way they wouldn't had a chance to before, you know.
Amazing. And do you think, when you mentioned video, do you think that it'll come to the stage where applications will be done more by video?
Oh yeah, it's happening now. You know, yes, it's happening now. I think you know out of the one, there was a major survey done there recently, and off the top of my head, I think it was 30% of job applications were submitted by video to that profile of job roles. So it's being done now. It will continue to be a growing trend. But again, it'll never replace a face-to-face, you know.
No, and that's when you're describing the process there, I'm thinking of our own process and bringing talent in. You're right, you use the application as a screen.
Yeah.
And then from that, we pick up the phone and talk. And then from that, then we do the face-to-face. But you can't beat meeting someone face-to-face to see if there's actually a fit, a natural fit.
Well, exactly. Can't beat it, exactly. So. Although it's interesting because we utilise video in our own interview process for some of our clients, and you know, we have a group of people, job seekers or contract workers, that actually are very uncomfortable with video. Bit like maybe today, but you know, so you're asking, maybe there would be set questions and they're responding to those questions, and you know, they maybe don't necessarily get a chance to fully articulate a comprehensive answer because they're nervous, or you know, they maybe think they're running out of time or whatever, you know, and you lose that if you're doing a pre-set interview on video, you know.
Yeah, it's a pity. Would those, in general, would those people be older, or is it a young population?
Yeah, the age profile of our candidate workforce would probably be sort of 30 plus,
of course,
30 to 50 probably, yes.
Because I'm thinking of young people now, they're living in video.
Oh, of course, yes,
like
of
with
course.
Snapchat and all these other apps.
I know.
So it's like,
it's funny you say that, just as a small sidebar. My son had a sore back the other day, and my son said to me, "It could be your L4 vertebra, mummy." And now he's 12. And I says, "Where the hell did you get that?" And he said I was watching it on YouTube. And that's just, he's getting medically educated because of YouTube, you know.
Incredible.
Isn't it?
It's amazing. So the education system needs to...
Completely, yeah. That is so true. You know, I have a 15-year-old who'll be doing his GCSEs next the following year, and he comes home with homeworks and different things, and I constantly am saying, right, we're going YouTube, and it's a different way of learning, you know, and I'm sort of surprised that they haven't integrated that more into the education system, you know, and maybe it's budgetary constraints or different reasons, but there's so much information available to them that's presented in an interesting and fun way that they can learn a lot more now than maybe, you know, we were able to in our day, you know.
No, it's definitely changing, but I think you're right. It's probably down to the commercial bit, but time it'll come.
Of course, yes.
5, 10, 15, but it will come. So businesses. So there's obviously advantages and. For businesses to use a service like yourselves, so
of course, yes.
What would be the core of the
so essentially, I guess that, you know, businesses utilise a company like Copius Group, for example, to do with availability of resources in a short time frame for and to give them flexibility. That's, I guess, the core thing. And a lot of the businesses that we work with can't access the skills that we can, and don't have the expertise maybe in-house for maybe short-term projects, for example, that we would have. So typically when somebody's, for example, working for us or working with us, they might be working on a project for 6 weeks in Angola, and they might be working then, you know, off for 2 weeks and then working somewhere else, maybe in Dubai, you know, for another 6 weeks, you know. So it's the availability and the mobility of the talent that we have would be a key thing for our customers in particular. Generally speaking, in terms of the recruitment space, it's probably not too dissimilar. It's about flexibility, it's about cost, it's about, you know, particularly maybe for smaller businesses, not having an in-house HR function and stuff like that. And then obviously the other part of our business, which is a growing part of our business, which is our subcontracting element, you know, gives our customer, I guess, a broader opportunity to utilise a wider scope of the capability and expertise that we have in-house, other than just general manpower.
Yeah.
And so there's loads of advantages, I guess, to partnering with an agency.
No, totally.
And even companies, large companies, and we do deal direct with large companies with their own internal HR functions. We're augmenting what they do as opposed to replacing what they do.
Sure.
And then they can concentrate more on core HR as opposed to sort of the recruitment element.
Very good. We'd see the same actually in our industry, is that people have in-house teams, but we come in as experts to focus on some little area that they need a little bit of help with, but they continue. So very interesting. Subcontracting.
Yes.
So tell us more about this.
Oh
This
my
sounds
goodness,
interesting.
yes. That wasn't a strategic move at all, but it has become one. Essentially, we developed part of our business as a subcontracting business. Really by accident, I suppose, rather than by design. And one of the countries in which we operate, it's illegal to operate as a manpower provider unless you're a registered business in that country. And at the time, it was an investment of maybe about 100,000. We had a client that had a requirement, and maybe the process would have maybe taken 3 to 6 months for us to get licensed as a business there, and that came with loads of other complications. So we went back to the customer and said, look, we can't do it. However, we can maybe do it in this particular way, and they had to then subcontract part of their work to us.
Cool.
So that involved, even for us as a business, looking at a different skill set in terms of hiring and capability and stuff like that. So, what typically would happen is a company, and we would work with maybe an EPC company that has got a major construction project. So that could be like, say, for example, Fleur. And they would get a major construction project, and then they subcontract elements of that work, and that could be an electrical package, for example. So that could be the installation of all the electrical works for a major data centre in Holland, just as an example. So then we would look at that proportion of work, and we would have to determine the materials that are required, the work procedures that are required in terms of health and safety, quality instruction, environmental procedure, the manpower that's required to complete the work, and then we put together a works package and a pricing model and stuff like that for that particular client. So that's a whole different ballgame.
It's incredible, but it shows being flexible, being there for the client, being flexible in coming up with a solution. That's actually
you know what? It's interesting because that's one of the benefits of being a smaller business. You can be flexible. Obviously I worked for a much larger company at one stage, and whilst they were innovative and dynamic, the larger we got, the more difficult it was to become agile, I guess. And the beauty about a small business is that particularly if you want the business and you need the business, you become as agile as you can. And it was an interesting, start for us into that type of work, which has evolved, and obviously that's one of the areas we see our significant growth over the course of the next 3 years.
Because I can understand the attraction of that, coming in and solving a mini project for a company,
exactly.
and then it's dealt with, and then you've got the expertise.
Yes.
And even you're involved in the materials and the
whole lot.
Whole
yes,
project.
The whole lot. And we do that both on and offshore. So we do. So
what a flip in the business model, as you say.
Completely,
completely.
completely.
I'm sure there's not many companies out.
Not many recruitment agencies certainly doing that, but again, probably part of that, which fundamentally was part of our strategy, I guess, which is where we can spot opportunity to add value to our customer, and that's a driver behind it as well, So we definitely see plenty of opportunity for growth in that particular area.
Very innovative. It's really good to see. So going forward then, so you've already spotted one opportunity, and what's on the horizon?
That's enough for us.
No,
but I think I guess when we look at our business, and as I say, we're sort of 3 years into a 5-year strategy. We were about to embark on a process of realigning that strategy in for the 5 years post that, to make sure that we're sort of still on track, and some things have changed clearly, and some things need sort of further finessing, I guess, but it really is fundamentally is about growing the wallet spend, as we would call it, with the customers that we have. So getting further embedded with the customers that we have, growing within the geographies that we're currently operating in, and developing out the range of services that we have, but still staying within the industry sectors in which we operate. As I mentioned at the start, we're doing some work out of the United States. We're quite unique in that there's very few companies in Northern Ireland have what's called an E2 visa. at the moment for hiring people in the United States. So we can take people with a British passport and hire them into the United States for 5 years. And so that's a significant market opportunity for us that we're going to develop further, particularly just with you know things the way they are in terms of the US at the moment. And we're done a couple of pilot projects for that, which have been very successful. So that's big area of growth for us. You know, mainland Europe will continue to grow, we hope, and so and actually part of you know the development in terms of online service offerings and stuff like that, or the utilisation of technology to support our business growth is really fundamentally going to be very important in terms of helping that happen. You know,
incredible, and the talent pool, and you get a lot of people from Ireland. Do you see it strengthening? Do you see it getting tougher?
Well, in actual fact, you know, not really. And this is an interesting thing actually, because you know, I personally would feel very much that in a lot of mainstream, particularly grammar schools that I would be familiar with, they probably don't, for whatever reason, have the opportunity to give a broad perspective of career opportunities to pupils, particularly at GCSE and A-level year. So I would say definitely a lot of the grammar schools are still focused largely on, you know, medicine, dentistry, you know, law, etc., etc. And yet there's a lot of really interesting opportunities globally, as you will know from having travelled abroad and worked abroad yourself, for a lot of our young people. So in terms of where we're at and the candidate pool that we would be utilising, that is an ageing workforce. So there is this gap coming through that do not understand the opportunities that there are out there in the marketplace. Obviously there's sexy industries, you know, like media and marketing, and it's still very attractive to people. And you probably ask, you know, I would say 8 out of 10 people under the age of sort of 16 now, what do you want to do? It'll be a YouTuber. Do you know what I mean? You know, so that's
break your heart.
Yeah, I know. So they don't necessarily want to be a footballer anymore. So you know that in itself is the education of a young potential workforce coming through is going to be critical, and that's a big challenge for some of our customers. And you know that again, but that's one of the reasons why they look to you know, a company such as ourselves, because our reach is much broader than they maybe typically would have, you know.
Incredible. So so we need to educate the schools and the
That's
career
it.
guidance
Yes,
teachers.
yeah, exactly.
Change
Yeah.
the mindset. So brilliant. So if anyone wanted to find out more about your company or see opportunities that you might have,
sure,
where should they go?
Basically, our first point of reference is, of course, our website. So that's www.copiusgroup.com. But they can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and all the sort of usual sort of social media channels. Yes.
And if they look underneath this video, we'll have all the live links, and if it's an article, definitely
absolutely
live
yes.
links as well. So
yes.
they can
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for coming in today and telling us about the Copius Group and what you're doing and how exciting the industries that you work in are. So thank you very much for that.
No
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching ProfileTree TV today. It was a very educational discussion today. Again, I'm learning every day. Hopefully you enjoy the video content. Do check out the links below. And this is Ciaran from ProfileTree, the content marketing agency, coming to you from the Innovation Factory in Springfield Road in Belfast. Stay tuned and don't forget to check out tomorrow's video. We'll talk soon. Thank you. Bye bye.